I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. We are starting off the show with a guest. I'm sure you are familiar with him. He is back and he has an announcement that I think you all want to hear. You're going to want to hear. So our special guest today is Butch Ware. He is the former vice presidential Green Party candidate. He was Jill Stein's running mate there for presidential election 2024. Butch Ware is back with some news. Let's go ahead and bring him in. What's going on, Butch?
How you doing, Sabby? It's good to be back.
Thanks so much for coming back on. A lot of people have been asking about you. I don't know if you know this, Butch, but people have been contacting me via email, DM, and they're like, what's going on with Butch? We want to know. Because like Jill came on, she's gone into another different podcast, and she's working on this event with Sean Masawant and Chris Hedges. Yep. That's coming up soon. But now people get to hear from you. Before you make your announcement, I think the first question, one thing that people really want to know, what was some of the feedback that you heard from this past presidential election from the people that we usually don't get to hear from? Like, what was some of the feedback that you heard from voters in Michigan and some of these swing states, et cetera, that decided to support you and Jill over the two-party system?
I mean, I think that what stood out to me, just given my background, given the fact that I've been, a scholar and a teacher and an organizer in the Muslim community for a couple of decades before I got pulled into politics, was the overwhelming response of support from the Muslim community first and foremost. That meant a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? The exit polling indicated that we won the Muslim community outright. 53% of Muslim Americans voted for the Steinway ticket. We buried Kamala and Trump in our demographic. And I think people have slept on that just off the top, because we haven't seen a major departure from the Democratic Party from an ethnic or religious demographic like that in a long time. I mean, this was a major shift, like akin to the way that Black folks shifted from Republicans to Democrats during the FDR tenure. That's the kind of shift that was. The other part was just this incredible outpouring of support from, you know, Black and Latin communities, the revolutionary community more broadly. I heard things, to be honest, that like had me, you know, humbled. Like I heard from Fred Hampton Jr. that like he reached out to me unprompted and said he was proud of what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? I had people, you know, in the Black Muslim community tell me, keep swinging, you're coming like Malcolm was coming. So when I hear stuff like that, that inspired me to kind of keep going, despite the fact that I'm not going to lie, I did not want to talk to anybody the day after the election. I am a sore loser. I did not, you know, I really thought that we could have performed better than we did. But that was also part of the reason why, you know, I sat with my family, I sat with my folks, you know, studied the issues and, you know, decided to get back into the game, because I think that the moment is right for a genuine third-party populist progressive alternative, you know, that brings in that Black radical tradition, that galvanizes the Muslim community, because we know that this, you know, corporate duopoly ain't about the people and it's not going to serve the people. So we're going to have to build something that will.
That's right. 100%. And another thing I want to add, of course, corporate media ignored this, but you're correct. You and Jill did win the Muslim vote, and they didn't want to focus on that. They're tending to focus on, oh, well, they didn't perform well, et cetera, not discussing all the obstacles that were in front of you. And also the fact that Jill Stein did have a town hall with CNN in 2016. They did not give her a town hall this time around. So that cannot be ignored. I think people do need to mention that. But I think what's really interesting to me is that right now, even now, after Trump's win, the Democratic Party does not have a favorable rating. I just saw the numbers earlier today where more than 50% of, I guess, Democrat voters are not happy with the Democratic Party. And that's while Trump is in office. Yep. So something, you know, has to change. I noticed Marianne Williamson threw her hat in the ring for the DNC chair, which I didn't think that was a good idea, because I know they're going to ignore her, which I was correct about that. Yeah. But it's become obvious, I think, to a lot of people that the Democratic Party cannot be reformed
at all. And so, you know, I said that I was disappointed with the outcome. I do think that there was massive voter suppression of the Green Party, you know, keeping us off the ballot in Illinois and New York State, you know, obviously affected the overall outcome. But just, you know, zooming out, they were absolutely terrified of us. And that's the reason for that media blackout. That's the reason for those attack ads that they ran right before, you know, the election. And I made only 2 predictions. I didn't predict that we would get to that 5%. I was hoping for it. I was pulling for it, but I made 2 predictions on the campaign. I saw the first of them come true, and then you'll assess the second with me. All right. So the first of them was, I said on August, I think 23rd, I'd been on the campaign for a week. I said the Dems have no path to victory in November. And I said that because I had been in the Muslim community, and then as soon as I saw the polling, I knew that they had lost the Muslim community, had lost the swing states, and therefore were not going to be competitive. So I've seen that prediction come true. The second prediction was, I said that the Democrats are going the way of the Whigs. They are going the way of the Whig Party. They are never going to get up from what they have done to themselves in this last electoral cycle and in the 30 years that preceded that. The corporate sell-off of this party from Clinton now through Kamala has put the final nails in the coffin of this party. And if you look and zoom out objectively, you see a party that is in utter shambles, utter shambles, and has no capacity to reassemble the base that has departed it. And so if we show strength and, present a true opposition alternative rather than a controlled opposition alternative, you are going to watch people, move to a new party. And that's what I'm trying to facilitate.
That's right. And you have an announcement that you want to make to everyone today because you are not out of this. So I want to go ahead and give you the floor. So it is official. I launched the official butchwareforgov.com website. That's Butchware for Gov with the number 4 in the middle of it, because I'm running for governor in the state of California. And what I'm saying to the people is that you do not have to be a California resident to be invested in the victory of this campaign. California, if all of the states were independent nations, California will be the 5th largest economy in the world. Okay. What happens in the state of California sends ripple effects everywhere. So part of choosing to take this fight, they said it. They said, "Where's the Green Party between presidential elections? How come we only hear from y'all every 4 years?" Well, what y'all gonna say today? That's the question, because the idea is that we are going to run to win in the state of California, yes, but also to galvanize all of those forces that are disaffected with this corrupt corporate duopoly that comes in blue or red flavors. And we are going to build a movement, because you do not have to be a resident of the state of California to donate or to volunteer to help build this strength. And the more strength we show in this 2026 electoral cycle, then the more damage we are capable of inflicting in 28 and in 32. So instead of talking about it, be about it. Put your money where your mouth is and help us win in the state of California. 100%. And that website is up. I want to go ahead and bring that up on the screen here. Butchware for Gov of California. We, the people, demand safety, autonomy, belonging, community, life, etc. One of the things that I like about this website is that, of course, you also have mutual aid and direct action. This is a big point for those of us over at Revolutionary Blackout Network. We all do mutual aid and, of course, direct action. You're probably one of the first or one of the few political candidates that has come onto this show that has this as a part of their platform. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Why do you feel that this was necessary to have as a part of your campaign?
I think that it's absolutely critical. So the mutual aid and direct action component. So just for legal purposes, I want to make it clear that that's a 501c4 organization that's distinct from the campaign for legal purposes. But the reason why it's there is that we need to understand that the movement building work is bigger than any political party, and it is bigger than electoral politics. Kwame Ture said that is the laziest, most bourgeois thing, to think that you can show up every 4 years and feel like you did your duty, right? And what we are seeing, especially accelerated under Trump, but to be perfectly honest, the neoliberal Democratic Party accelerated this process as well. We have seen a complete divestment from all of the basic responsibilities that a government is supposed to take care of. We do not have anybody but ourselves. So that means that we have to rely on one another for that mutual aid and coordinating direct action. And yes, the political campaign to win the gubernatorial race in the state of California is a crucial part of that. But this has to be a nationwide mutual aid and direct action movement that helps to build the kind of strength that we're going to need to be competitive in subsequent elections and to meet people's needs in the meantime. Last thing I'll say, because I am a professor, I periodically will get long-winded in responses to these questions, but in that last piece, the revolutionary learning community, because that last part on the website was about the learning community that we also have. And I just had our second meeting of the Revolutionary Book Club yesterday. It's a free book club meeting. We're reading Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton for next month. By all means, join us. But what Huey talked about at the end of that was he said that everybody got obsessed with the Panthers and guns. And don't get me wrong, armed self-defense is an important part of the Black radical tradition. But he said that if you look at the Panther platform, the first 6 points are all survival programs.
Yes.
right? Survival programs, without the ability to feed ourselves, without the ability to coordinate childcare, without the ability to coordinate police watches so that we can make sure that our communities are not being harmed, without the ability to coordinate keeping eyes on ICE and communicating with one another in a fashion that does not spread fear and terror and panic, but that rather gives our communities the reconnaissance that is necessary for us to adjust our movements so that we can get the safety that we need, that our political authorities are not providing, then whatever we do in the electoral sphere will be compromised by the brokenness of our communities. So we have to be building community at the same time as we are building political power.
And this is something I don't see the Democratic Party do. I've even seen Republicans organize for mutual aid. Believe it or not, I've seen Republicans have, Republican activists have their own like soup kitchens and things like that. But this is something the Democratic Party chooses not to really focus on, is this community building piece, right? I see them come around when they want you to reelect them. But other than that, I don't see them. I don't hear from these people. And it's been a long going story. We've been talking about this over and over, like throughout the years, that they're nowhere to be found. And then they wonder why people continue to stop like showing up in numbers. The numbers have decreased over the years, every election cycle. I've been sounding an alarm about this, but now they're kind of stuck in this headway. And then you have Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom is not favorable right now, despite the fact that he already had a recall a couple of years ago that he was able to beat. Do you think that Gavin Newsom is going to run for governor again?
So he can't. His term limit is finished. So he's out of the race. And I think that they've been grooming him and setting him up for a presidential run. That's been kind of the basic part of their approach. So that's one. Let me just go back for that part about how we don't see or hear from the from the Democrats. I actually made a social media post about this right before I got called into the campaign, and this was in August, where I said that Kamala Harris is to politics what Drake is to hip hop. Okay. And then I said, what did Kendrick say? Kendrick said, you come to Atlanta when you need a few dollars. You ain't a colleague, you a colonizer, right? Now that's what happens, right? They come to the community when it is time for them to fundraise or when it is time for them to get out the vote. Otherwise, you don't hear from them. And so that's also an important piece of why the mutual aid and direct action is part of this overall strategy, which is not just an electoral strategy, is that in order for communities to believe that this movement is capable of delivering the goods, then they need to see us show up. And that means like getting on the ground in Santa Ana and in Stockton and in Compton and showing up for the mutual aid work. So that is a crucial part of the overall strategy. And that's also part of the reason why, and just to be blunt about this, is that the support for this campaign, in order for us to be successful, is going to have to be nationwide support. We have to invest in building a model that will have its own impact in the state of California for sure, but that will provide a model for how we can build a successful independent third party movement, more broadly, that this is a laboratory and it's a good place to start. And not just because I live here and it's become my home state and I'm invested in the place and have deep relationships, especially in LA and in Oakland and in San Diego, to build upon, but also because whatever happens in California is going to send shockwaves and ripple effects throughout the country. So this is also a state that, oftentimes refers to itself as a blue state. You're never going to hear me saying that, but it is the state in the union that has the most progressive politics. And so this is also a place where I think that we can press the edge of a progressive populist message and get a response. A lot of people don't know that there are as many registered independents in the state of California as there are registered Republicans. So there is a real opportunity for us to move in some different lanes than politicians conventionally move.
Correct. And you mentioned nationwide. This is an important point. Some people may not be aware of this, but even when you look at AOC's first congressional campaign, when she was running against Crowley, some people may not be aware that it wasn't just volunteers in New York that were helping AOC that campaign.
Yep.
That was a nationwide effort. There were people here in Massachusetts that were helping AOC get elected, and there were Green Party members who also were helping AOC on the ground. And this is why some of us gave a tremendous pushback towards her when she came after, of course, Jill Stein, your running mate. And we gave that pushback because the things that she said about the Green Party, knowing that it was better, that helped her get elected. That's where a lot of the grassroots came from. And she got in, and now she, turned her back around and wants to talk smack about other people, etc. But the whole point that you bring up about the grassroots and having that foundation, I think when we look at third parties right now in the United States, the Green Party is the one that seems to do really well with ballot access for presidential elections. I know there's been a lot of criticism about the Green Party, and I've had those discussions on my show with other Green Party members as well. But I think people do omit certain things. Like, for example, I've interviewed Green Party mayors on this show. So when people say that Green Party members don't hold any of these seats, that's simply not true. Now, do we have Green Party members in Congress? No, we do not. But there are Green Party mayors. There are Green Party, of course, city councilors, school board, etc. I do think the Green Party does need stronger congressional races. But again, of course, that also comes back to money.
100%. So before I touch on that part, I just want to go back for AOC Pelosi real quick, because it's really rich, hearing from, the holder for the land speed record of the fastest betrayal of the people, anything, to be perfectly honest. I mean, you just remember, we're working tirelessly for a ceasefire, So, and what does it get you when you bend over backwards and sell out and shill for the corporate establishment the way that she has? They still ran right past her for 100-year-old, white man. Jerry was a Connolly, whatever it was, in the position of authority that she was seeking. So you bend over backwards and, sell out, with record pace. And they still show you exactly no love and exactly no respect, because I'm just going to be blunt about this. The Democratic Party for people of color is a plantation. And that's also what's driving that argument that you're stealing voters from the Democrat. They believe that they actually own the votes of people of color, and that if anybody comes and peels away those votes, they're taking away something that belongs to the Democrats. They have a proprietary ownership model of the votes of people of color, and we're not buying that. Now, with respect to the Green Party, every single party has issues. I've spoken to the Green Party National Steering Committee, I'm on the Coordinated Campaign Committee, spoken to Black Caucus, the Lavender Caucus members, and other groups inside the Green Party about building strength and capacity. And I'll just do the short version of this, but there's kind of 5 key things that need to happen. And this campaign has to be a part of this process of growing the party. The first is that we need better vertical integration inside the party. We didn't have good mechanisms for letting the little bit of media shine and fundraising capacity that the presidential ticket was getting. We didn't have good ability for that to matriculate down to Green Party state chapters and local chapters so that we could distribute that shine. Neither did we have the ability to really connect with a lot of those local chapters in ways that were productive of, like, what are the people's needs on the ground. And in a sane organization, you should have that kind of layered conversation so that what you're doing at the local level and what you're doing at the national level is proceeding in an integrated fashion. And this is not me telling tales out of school. I said this directly to Green Party leadership. The second thing is that there needed to be a shift in the culture. And I said this, I'll just be blunt about this. I said that there's a lot of, aging weed smoking white leftists in the party, and they don't necessarily have like a go-getter attitude about winning. I said people have been content to be on the field, but as soon as y'all called me into this electoral fight, then we are playing to win the game, not to stay on the field. And that electoral ballot access is crucial. It cannot be understated the way that the Green Party has been able to successfully fight to stay on the field. I'm not trying to diminish that accomplishment, but rather that accomplishment has led to a phase where we now have to translate that electoral access in national elections to electoral damage in national elections. And then you said this, and I'll stop here. I'll just do the 3 points, and then we can get to 4 and 5 if they come up organically later. Fundraising. You cannot expect these kinds of robust political organizations to be developed on an entirely volunteer basis. That's not the way that the incentive structure of human activity functions. People need material reward for their work just as a matter of survival. And that's why when I came onto the campaign, and we just got the latest figures, and is that before I joined the campaign, in the 10 months before I came aboard, the campaign had raised roughly $1.1 million over those 10 months, right? In that same time frame, the Democrats had raised $1 billion. Right. And you cannot win when you are being out fundraised 1,000 to 1. It doesn't matter the kind of candidate quality you may have. Now, even though this was literally my first election, those long relationships with fundraisers in the Muslim community, I'm often the keynote speaker at fundraisers for mosques around the country. So we were able to raise almost $2 million just in the 2.5 months that I was on the campaign. So we accelerated our fundraising capacity basically by a factor of 8. And I am counting on the Muslim community not just to show up for us in electoral ways, but to show up for us as fundraisers in this gubernatorial and in future electoral cycles. We are going to need to actually raise money in order to be competitive, in order to build those field offices in all of those spots that we are going to need to show up for communities on a daily basis.
That's right. Well said. And another thing I want to mention as well, I've also said this as well. I do think the Green Party needs to do better about making not just inroads, but some type of, building community within the Black community, right? And I'm not talking about, when I say that, people are like, why would we go to Democrat voters? They're going to have their loyals to the Democratic Party. I'm talking about Black people who don't vote, or maybe used to vote, but they stopped because they're like, what's the point, right? Our communities are a disaster, and we keep electing, the same person, or we voted for this party, we voted for that party, and nothing changes. I do think there needs to be inroads made there, more so going to like, for example, if it were me and if I was a part of the Green Party, I already know that, particularly in Massachusetts, I would heavily focus on Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester, etc. A lot of the politicians are going to focus on Boston proper. Yep. It's things like that. It's going into those communities that a lot of times, like, the Democrats don't go into, like, including Kamala Harris, right? She didn't even go to Dearborn. I mean, come on. Like, so it's those communities that I think both parties have kind of said, we don't need to spend our time there because they don't come out and vote anyway. I want to remind everybody that the reason how AOC was able to beat against Crowley is she was able to get non-voters to come out and vote. So I don't think that you should look away, from those individuals. But I think, and I've said this recently, I did a breakdown about Gloria Steinem, and I think any type of movement that is trying to uplift marginalized people, those marginalized issues have to be front and center. And I think that's any movement, any political party, because otherwise it gets pushed to the bottom of the list, or it's just not on the paper at all.
100%. And I to be blunt about it, so my PhD is in African history, African American history. I teach on the Black radical tradition from Africa throughout the diaspora. I said to the team that brought me on, I said that that if you bring me into this ticket, that the Green Party is going to have to become the red, black, and green party. right? That this absolutely is going to have to be a party that orients its messaging towards Black communities. And you know, I saw somebody ask this in the chat earlier on, where are y'all on reparations? Reparations now, right? You know, the Green Party, our good sister in Monterey, Audra Walton, you know, got the California Green Party to put reparations directly in the California Green Party platform. We are about eliminating the wealth gap in this generation, not waiting. We're about transformation of the carceral state, the end of the police state, and the building of models of public safety that aren't rooted in the surveillance, control, incarceration, and commoditization of Black and brown bodies. But the issue that you pointed to is exactly the right issue. When I spoke with the NorCal Green Party representatives not too long ago in a visit up to Berkeley, I said that the Green Party has the best policies for the Black community, but it's not a Black people's party, right? we have the policies that provide the most dignity and the best policies for immigrant communities more broadly and for the Latin community specifically, but we're not a Latinx party. We have the best policies for workers and working class people, but we're not a workers' party. And that is precisely because those things have they've been part of the platform and part of the intellectual articulation of the vision of the Green Party. But in order for us to win the trust of those constituencies, it means we have to do exactly that. We have to go into communities that have never had any incentive in believing that this electoral politics was for them. I'm gonna tell you the proudest moment, and people are gonna think that this is crazy, but it's true. Proudest moment for me on the campaign was when we got the endorsement of the almighty Vice Lord Nation. When I right? When I moved, so I grew up in DC originally, moved to the south side of Minneapolis when I was young. I grew up in a Vice Lord neighborhood. And so getting, you know, street organizations galvanized. Some of our key organizers in San Diego are people that have been working with street organizations for years, you know, positive community, you know, interventions. And these are exactly the folk, you know, that get left out of the political conversation entirely, that, you know, a movement like ours has the capacity to speak to and reach out to. I've mentioned before in other environments, my wife's, you know, Mexican-American first generation, you know, her mother was undocumented, you know, for years. But I remember, you know, I told her, I woke up, look at a text, and I said, babe, we got the Vice Lord's, you know, endorsement. And she was like, that's dope. Right? Like, and you know, for a Mexican American, you know, that grew up in Stockton, you know, being able to have a message that speaks to street organizations, that's something that hits, that's something that's real, that's something that's different from politics as usual. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I am not no politician. We are going to approach this like organizers, and we are going to approach this like public servants, and we are going to build something akin to what the Panthers were building before they put them down.
Well said, Butch. Butch, before you go, where can people follow you?
At Butch Ware on Instagram is the one that I actually manage. You can find me at Butch Ware on other platforms as well, but I don't post as frequently. I actually respond to DMs on IG, but go right now to butchwareforgov.com and kick in $11 towards this movement. And if you are flat broke, then donate your time if you can't donate your resources. We need volunteers. We need people that are willing to put their time and their money, you know, where their mouth is, and actually help us build this. The American people know we need it. You know, all of the polling says that literally 70% of independents and a majority, 50% of Democrats and Republicans say that we need an independent third party because the two parties are so bad at their job. Well, we've got an opportunity to build one, and with your support, we're gonna do it.
Awesome. Butch, thank you so much. Keep in touch. Bye.
Take care.
All right, guys, that was Butch Ware. You heard his announcement here. He is running for governor of California. That's right. So we can add him to the docket. I think Nicole Shanahan also may be running for governor of California, and we're not sure about Kamala. She's trying to find her footing somewhere. But that's good news there for the Green Party. So if you live in California, you do have an alternative. So shout out to all of you guys. Tonight's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is The Truth Comes Out. We have a couple of stories that I do want to get into. Some crazy things have happened just over the weekend. I know it's still Sunday, but a lot has gone down. So all of the stories are not there on the thumbnail, but I do want to go ahead and show that and tell you what else we're going to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and jump on over here. We are discussing tonight. This is a big one. Joe Rogan and Kamala Harris mask off. There is new information. I tell you, the story keeps changing, doesn't it? New information about why this interview did not take place during Kamala's campaign. So we are going to dive into that. We are also going to discuss, if you have not heard yet, there is now a new DNC chair, and he has made a pretty wild statement. You know what I say? New boss, same as the old boss, guys. New boss, same as the old boss. We'll also talk about who the new vice chair of the the DNC is now as well, who you might be more familiar with than the gentleman here. Of course, Butch Ware was just here to announce that he's running for governor of California. We have two more. Yeah. So we have another story we need to get into. This is really interesting. TikTok man racist rant. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll see it there. It says Mexicans are not alone. Then you hear black people. This guy has gotten a lot of backlash. And I actually have another video that's going to debunk what he said in this video. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Two more stories, ladies and gentlemen. There is another plane situation that we need to get into. This is very recent. I don't know what's going on with the planes. So another one. I already covered the Philly one and the DC one, but this is another situation. And we're also going to get into what Elon Musk did over the weekend with the Office of Personnel Management. This is very concerning. Of course, again, this is what happens when you allow billionaires to just come in and do whatever they want to do. So we'll get into all of those stories. Folks, I am trying to remain on time. I hope I will do a good job of that because I do have a hard stop. So we're going to go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters doing the thing. Don't forget about those Sabbies, ladies and gentlemen. They're pretty cool. Pretty cool Sabsters and Sabbies. And of course, we also have members. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker as well. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Really appreciate you there, fam. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Shout out to Yonina, who's been a member for 2 months. Sabby, we are just entering the mouth of madness and we have a long way to go. When is your mutual aid course starting? Love what you do. Keep going. Yes, the mutual aid course will start at the end of February. I was actually going to talk about that a little bit more Tuesday evening for those who are interested in participating in that. We are going to be teaching people how to do mutual aid in their respective areas. So stay tuned for that. I'll talk more about it on Tuesday. Bill says, love the Milli Vanilli deep dive. That was a fun one, huh? That was a fun segment. Yeah, I should post that clip for that one. If not tomorrow, definitely Tuesday. Shout out to James Wesley, who's been a member for 32 months. What's up, James? And Krista. Sabby, hope you're having a great day. I was wondering if you heard about the 30,000 migrants being sent to Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. It seems so cruel for Trump to do this. I saw a headline about it. I have to dig a little bit deeper before I can cover that. I will tell you, it's hard to keep up with everything that's happening under Donald Trump. Day after day, it's another different thing. Thank you for this, James. Love you, Sabby. We need to keep doing the damn thing more than ever. Thank you. Thank you, Zone. I do not agree with Butch that Kamala is anything like Drake. That's just ignorant. Also, the Democratic Party has helped work with civil rights leaders for over 50 years. So that's malinformation. Working with civil rights leaders and doing mutual aid within the communities are two different things, though. two different things. And thank you for this one as well. The plantation you're referring to were Dixiecrats. I would argue it be best for a Black Panther-like diaspora to take a proactive approach. Thank you for this one as well. Does Butch understand how bureaucracy works? And thank you, Britt. Sabs, what are your favorite fragrances for men/women? So for women, I have one that I use, just one. Like some people have a lot of different, fragrances. Some people love to buy different perfume. I don't. I have one that I will always go to regardless the season. And that's the one by Ralph Lauren that just says Ralph on the bottle. It's a round perfume bottle and it's a turquoise color and it says Ralph in white letters. That is my go-to, always has been. I really don't like trying new perfumes, to be honest. It's really not my thing. I compare everything to that one too. That's another thing. Let's go ahead to the comment on Rockfin. Hey. All right. Thank you for the tip, Dave. Good to see Sabby fighting onwards going live today. Thank you. Yes, because I will not be live next Sunday because it's the Super Bowl. So you know how it is. You know how we do. Okay. All righty. Smash that like button, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done so. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. The theme tonight is The Truth Comes Out, and we're starting with breaking news, another plane incident, ladies and gentlemen. This time in Houston, Texas, there appeared to be an issue that happened with United Airlines before the plane took off. Luckily, the plane was still grounded. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get into this story, but this speaks volumes. Here we are again. Numerous passengers were evacuated after United Airlines plane after it caught on fire during takeoff. We have a couple of images to show you here, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the first one. Check this out.
Come on, please remain seated until further instructions from the captain. Oh my God. Please get us on. So fire, this is jet.
Luckily, it wasn't in the air. Let me see if I can find the one again where it's on fire. You guys can see it. It's the engine.
Please remain seated until further instructions from the captain.
Right there. So one of the engines caught on fire. It's not that something like this hasn't happened before, but considering there's been 3 airline incidents this week, or plane incidents this week, now this is number 4. It is alarming and scary. Also, even though they were grounded, that still doesn't mean that they can't be, affected by this. There's a number of things like you guys notice when you're on the plane and the plane lands. Remember, they tell you everyone stay seated until it's clear. They give you the okay for you to take your seatbelt off and this is because you never know what could happen, even when you have, that plane has decided to ground itself. Now, one second here. I want to go into, there's a little bit more with this story here. So they were able to pick this up on Live Now. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Houston, Texas plane engine catches on fire.
We are following some breaking news out of Houston, Texas, after a United airplane caught fire at Bush's airport right there. It did have to be evacuated. So far, no reports of any injuries, but I did want to share some video that's coming into our studio. Take a listen.
Oh my God. Please get us on. So fire, this is jet.
All right, so that was some video right there that we did want to share with you from our Fox 26 Houston. Meanwhile, you are taking a live look at Houston, Texas right now. I did want to share some more information about the flight from Houston to New York that did have to be evacuated after it caught fire during takeoff. That's according to the FAA. And the very latest is that the FAA says the crew of United Airlines Flight 1382 had to stop their takeoff from George Bush Intercontinental.
Yeah. Sorry, let me just go forward here a little bit.
Engine issue. Flight 1382 had to stop their takeoff from George Bush Intercontinental.
Yeah, George Bush Intercontinental. Let me come back up here. Sometimes it does this with the video here.
Fox 26 Houston. Meanwhile, you are taking a live look at Houston, Texas right now. I did want to share some more information about the flight from Houston to New York that did have to be evacuated after it caught fire during takeoff. That's according to the FAA. And the very latest is that the FAA says the crew of United Airlines Flight 1382 had to stop their takeoff from George Bush Intercontinental Airport because of a reported engine issue that happened at around 8:35 a.m. local time this morning.
We're going to pause there because one of the things I do want to go ahead and address, I mean, plenty of people have already asked, like, does this have anything to do with Boeing? So for United Airlines, yes, part of the body of the United Airline planes are Boeing, right? So like Boeing parts. And you guys know we've covered this before on the show about the 2 Boeing whistleblowers that were all of a sudden died right before they were supposed to testify. Boeing has been known to try to speed up manufacturing in order to make a buck. And this is what I want people to really take away from this, is that the reason why you're seeing this happen, whether it's the engines catch on fire or a wing of the plane falls off the plane, is because of capitalism, is because these companies are trying to speed up production as quickly as they can so that they can make more money. Even if that means that they are overlooking safety regulations. It's been happening for years. This is exactly why you had the 2 whistleblowers that were coming forward, and they had given statements which explained that, yeah, I saw them skip procedures, skip steps just so they can get those parts out as quickly as possible. That is not okay, because when people get on a plane, they are putting their life at your disposal. I mean, the reality is they're trusting that the pilot is going to, fly safely, that the pilot is not going to be intoxicated. There's all that with the pilot, right? But then there's the actual plane that you're in. I mean, it's metal. You're in metal in the air. And in this situation, not even in the air, you're on the ground. You're still on the ground. So you are trusting that you are going to be okay and be able to make it safely to your destination. Now, of course, things happen, but some of these things can be avoided. The engine should not catch on fire. What would have happened if this plane would have already taken off and then the engine catches on fire? What do you do? So again, a lot of this goes back to capitalism. And I know not everybody that watches me is a socialist or a Marxist or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think all of us need to learn how to come to an agreement on the fact that profit seems to matter more than your safety. That's how you end up with these incidents with Boeing and other companies as well. Let's go ahead and go on a little bit more here.
We shared video acquired by Fox 26 Houston with you, showing that the wing of the plane caught on fire. And in that video, you heard a flight attendant asking for passengers to stay in their seats. One of those passengers pushing back, saying, "It's on fire." Now, some passengers did have to use the emergency slide to get off the plane. That's according to the Houston Fire Department. No injuries were reported, and the FAA currently investigating the situation. I also wanted to share this with you. This is a statement from the spokesperson of the FAA. on this incident, saying, quote, the crew of United Airlines Flight 1382 safely aborted its takeoff from the George Bush Intercontinental Houston Airport in Texas due to a reported engine issue at around 8:35 a.m. local time on Sunday. Passengers deplaned on the runway and were bused to the terminal. The Airbus A319 was flying to
LaGuardia. Yes, I don't know what's wrong with this video, but it was flying to LaGuardia Airport in New York. The FAA will investigate, contact the airline for additional information. Now, that's coming from the FAA spokesman, Steve Combs. So another thing I want to add here, when they talk about people evacuating the plane, I just want everyone to keep in mind that there are also people that have disabilities that need to fly for whatever reason, the same reason that you need to, and they may not be able to move as quickly to get off the plane in an evacuation situation, or they may look to someone next to them to say, can you help me, right? Can you help me get off of this plane? So keep that in mind as well. It's not just about, I think we're thinking about people who are able-bodied that can quickly just get up out of the seat and just hop away. You also got to think about those who are elderly that someone may have a cane, someone may have a walker, etc. They may need help. So again, like, there's no reason why in the United States of America we should continue to have these malfunctions other than the fact that profit. It's all about profit. Now, I do want to show you this as well. What are some of the reasons that an engine can catch on fire? So I think you might find this rather interesting. Let's bring this up here, because I was curious and I just wanted to do a little bit of a dive. So this, I got the right one? Yeah. This side here, it talks about like prevention strategies, what to do if it happens to you. And they're talking about fire, like on a plane. But I want to get to the part here about the engines, right? So the engine start, perhaps the most common type of aircraft fire is one that erupts during engine start. A cold weather start is a perfect scenario for an engine fire, particularly if we get carried away with the primer. Excess fuel makes its way into the carburetor intake. Then the engine backfires through the carburetor, igniting the fuel along with the dirty air filter. I don't know if that's exactly what happened with this situation at United Airlines, but I did want you to see just some of the issues that can cause this to happen, right? So, and then they tell you what to do if that situation takes place. They also go into electrical fires too, right? So it says, electrical fires originate from electrical components. It says we can detect electrical fire before it really gets going. So that's a key note there. But it does say even here, once ignited, electrical fires burn just like any fire. One difference is that the heat from the energized electrical wiring or component that caused the fire might sustain it. For this reason, your first step, if you have an electrical fire, is to cut the power by turning off the master switch. By isolating the battery, alternator, generator, etc., we remove the ignition source and the fire should extinguish. So I thought this was interesting. One more part here, the engine fire, which is what you saw in the video. Detecting an in-flight engine fire may not be as easy as we think, but sometimes we can detect the fire's cause if we're observant. So listen to this. I want to highlight some of the things that can cause that as well. A drop in fuel pressure or fluctuating fuel pressure reading may suggest a broken fuel line, a common precursor to an engine fire. So one of the common causes of an engine fire on an airline is the broken fuel line. That's one of them. A rough running engine might be caused by a cracked cylinder, which can leak oil or hot gas and ignite a blaze. So we don't know the for sure reason with this particular incident in Houston, but what I will say is that it's just it's not good. Like, period. It's not good. Imagine being cleared for takeoff and that happens. It's scary. And then the passengers who have to evacuate, they're probably like, I don't know if I want to get back on another plane, And planes aren't for everyone. Now, do we have more, car accidents than we do airline accidents? Yes. So people will tell you a plane is safer than a car, but the incidents that we've had over the past week, that doesn't reassure someone who may be hesitant to fly. You know what I mean? Because people will tell you, even with a car accident, is that at least with a car, if there's a crash, you have a chance. Like, you don't have to worry about it because you're not in the air, that type of thing. But I think it speaks to something else. And I think we need to have this conversation, which is high-speed rail. This is another thing. The reason why a lot of people fly when they're traveling long distance is because it's faster by plane than it is by rail. We have Amtrak. It does what it does. I think Amtrak is good if you're going short distance. I usually take it like to New York. But I think if you're traveling from Houston, Texas to New York, obviously, if you were to take a train, that's probably going to take maybe 2 days at least. So think about that. We don't have high-speed rail here in the United States, and other countries have it. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. And Europe has been on this for years, right? Like you can literally in Europe, you can go from France to, let's say we'll go to France to UK, or from Germany to Italy. You can just get on the high-speed rail. And that is an infrastructure problem that we don't have in this country. And I do wish we had high-speed rail. Don't know if it will happen anytime soon. But what we're seeing happen with these planes back to back, it almost kind of feels like they don't want people to leave. Like, it almost kind of feels like they're trying to scare people because they don't want people to travel. And I don't know if we want to call that a conspiracy or not, but I do think it's weird. It's weird that they've all happened back to back like this, and all of them have been in the news. Makes you wonder. All right, let's go to some of the comments here, folks. Hey. Charles, this is getting scary. I have a few trips planned to Seattle, outside the country to Kenya. Yeah, I know how you feel, Charles. Yeah, man. I don't know. Thank you, Perry. An Air Force F-35 crashed 2 days ago in Alaska. The total F-35 program is budgeted at $2 trillion, and the planes are junk. I mean, it's you're in metal. Like, it's just tin metal in the air. Thank you, Zone. It's a bit troubling. Fox has essentially monopolized on mainstream media. Try Ground News, which helps provide nonpartisan media coverage and analytics. I've looked at Ground News. I wouldn't say it's nonpartisan, because they have people who are conservatives that report on Ground News, and they have people who are liberals that report on Ground News. I wouldn't say it's not biased. It's just that you get both sides in one place. Kip Doctor, Boeing has also outsourced most of its manufacturing, used to be mostly in-house. Oh, it used to be mostly in-house. There you go with that again. Thank you, Jaden. Hi, Sabby. What was the third plane accident again? It was the one in Alaska. I didn't get a chance to cover that one. I'm telling you guys, it's been going back to back to back with these plane crashes. It's crazy. And thank you, Zone. Have you seen Leave the World Behind, executive produced by the Obamas? Yes, I did see that. I did see that one. That was interesting. Oh my gosh, folks. Oh my darling. Oh my darling. We're moving on to the next story again. Ladies and gentlemen, The Truth Comes Out is tonight's theme for the show. And we can say the same thing with this story that broke about billionaire Elon Musk. What is he up to this time? Apparently, the other day, Elon Musk just felt like he could just lock workers out of the system. We're talking about the Office of Personnel Management. This is very troubling and problematic. Musk aides lock workers out of the Office of Personnel Management computer systems. Now, remember, folks, Elon Musk is not the president of the United States. And he is making these types of decisions. And again, I feel like there's no accountability because Elon Musk is a billionaire. So this is dangerous. He just comes in and locks people out. Let's get into the details, folks. Aides to Elon Musk charged with running the U.S. government human resources agency have locked career civil servants out of computer systems that contain the personal data of millions of federal employees, according to two agency officials. Yeah. This is crazy, guys. Since taking office 11 days ago, Donald Trump has embarked on a massive government makeover, firing and sidelining hundreds of civil servants in his first steps towards downsizing the bureaucracy and installing more loyalists. Elon Musk, the billionaire Tesla CEO and ex-owner, tasked by Trump to slash the size of the 2.2 million strong civil government workforce, has moved swiftly to install allies at the agency known as the Office of Personnel Management. The two officials who spoke to Reuters on condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation said some senior career employees at OPM have had their access revoked to some of the department's data system. Okie dokie. So you have a billionaire who comes in. Again, he donated a lot of money to Donald Trump's campaign. You have a billionaire who comes in who has locked out employees at the OPM so they can't even get into the computer system. Why is a billionaire making these decisions? And so you're forgetting about the access. Like, don't forget about that. The access to the data. The system includes a vast database called Enterprise Human Resources Integration, which contains the date of birth, social security numbers, appraisals, home addresses, pay grades, and the length of service of government workers. What the hell is going on? Social security numbers, your date of birth, appraisals, home address. What the hell? I mean, it's not like it's information that's not important. This is important, vital information. And he just comes in and does whatever he wants to do. We have no visibility into what they are doing with the computer and data systems. This is coming from one of the officials. That is creating great concern. There is no oversight. It creates real cybersecurity and hacking implications. Dude. Officials affected by the move can still log on and access functions such as email, but can no longer see the massive data sets that cover every facet of the federal workforce. But Elon Musk can see it? Everybody okay with us? This is what I call government overreach. Or in this case, billionaire overreach. And regardless if you were team red, team blue, or no team at all, everybody should have a problem with this billionaire just locking employees out of the OPM and having access to all this data. Don't also forget, he also owns Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. So you have someone who owns a social media platform, which Twitter does access your data, by the way. Now you have that person locking out employees at the OPM so they can't see the data anymore, but he can see it. Him and his associates can see it. Don't we find this to be a problem? Musk OPM representatives of the new team in the White House did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Of course, OPM has sent out memos that eschew the normal dry wording of government missives, as it encourages civil servants to consider buyout offers to quit and take a vacation to a dream destination. Oh my God. Don Monahan, a professor at the Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan, said the actions inside OPM raised concerns about congressional oversight at the agency and how Trump and Musk view the federal bureaucracy. This makes it much harder for anyone outside of Elon Musk inner circle at OPM to know what's going on. You think? Then we need to talk a little bit about the influence. A team including current and former employees of Musk assumed command of OPM on January 20th, the day Trump took office. They have moved sofa beds onto the 5th floor of the agency's headquarters, which contains the director's office and can only be accessed with a security badge or a security escort. This is coming from one of the OPM employees. The sofa beds have been installed so the team can work around the clock. The team can work around the clock. Going back again to capitalism. Not fair labor practices. Let's make sofa beds here so that you don't have to leave your work environment and you can continue working around the clock. What the hell has happened to this country? I've been warning people that the billionaires are a problem. I've been warning people again, this is exploitation of labor and nobody's putting a stop to it. He goes on to say here, Musk, a major donor to a famously demanding boss, installed beds at X for employees to enable them to work longer in 2022 when he took over the social media platform known as Twitter. It feels like a hostile takeover, the employee said. The new appointees in charge of the OPM have moved the agency chief management officer, this is Katie Malag, out of her office and to a new office on a different floor. Malag did not respond for requests for comment. See, nobody wants to talk about it. The moves by Musk aides at OPM, an upheaval inside the Treasury building called by other Musk aides that was reported on Friday, underscored the sweeping influence Musk is having across government. So the problem that I think we run into is that had the Democratic Party continued, well, we had Bernie, but the party as a whole, if they would have demanded that we get corporate money out of electoral politics, if they would have criticized and heavily attacked billionaire funding with these political parties, then they could have a leg to stand on and push back here and say, this is absolutely ridiculous. We got a billionaire here just making decisions whenever he wants to, but they can't do that because they're in bed with the billionaires too. It may not be Elon Musk, but they're in bed with billionaires like George Soros. You guys heard Nicole Shanahan say publicly on Twitter that if you guys don't vote for RFK Jr., she said that she's going to make sure that you do not keep your seats next election cycle. And she's got the money to make it happen. So when you have both parties support billionaire donors and happily take money from billionaires, it's kind of hard to push back on the overreach that is being described here in this article because you both have applauded it for years. You have a couple of members of the Democratic Party that speak out against billionaire money, but at the end of the day, the party as a whole takes billionaire money, happily accepts billionaire money, and that's how we got here. It didn't start with Elon Musk, but Elon Musk has decided, you know what? I'm going to take this to another level, make it even crazier than ever I want to. I'll do whatever I want because he can't be held accountable. And he knows he can't be held accountable. It's crazy. A little bit more here. So David Labrique, the top ranking U.S. Treasury Department official, he said, or it says here, he is set to leave his post following a clash with allies of Musk after they asked for access to the payment systems. So here we go. So imagine you're just at work, just doing your damn job. And like a mob of people come in and say, that's it, we're in, you're out, go. And you can no longer get access to any of the computer information, none of the data systems. You're locked out of it. And now they have all the, what are they doing with all this? Hostile takeover. That's when you just push that bell and say, security. But security probably isn't going to do anything either. The new team at OPM includes software engineers and Brian, I think this is Bedeld, who joined Musk's SpaceX venture in 2003. So you have him as well. It goes on to say, no one here knew that the memos were coming out We are finding out about these memos the same time as the rest of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk, because it's not just him, but he's the one we're talking about right now. Elon Musk is a problem. But we can point to Elon Musk, but he's not the only one that's the problem. It's billionaires in general. And it doesn't matter if the billionaire is on Trump's team or if they're on the Democrat team. Billionaires are a problem. They have a lot of influence over legislation, whether it passes or fails. They donate to these politicians to do their bidding. And now you have a billionaire walking into his group, walking into the OPM and shutting everybody out. And that's what happens when you let them get away with it for so long. That's what happens when these parties do not push back on the billionaire class. And here we are. The truth is coming out, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is coming out. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you guys. Thank you, Frank. Still got love for you, Sabby from Canada. Billionaires run the show here too. I can imagine. But at least everyone in Canada has healthcare, right? You guys have healthcare. So, and I know it's not the same in every province, but the Oracle. And who knows how those records are being copied and manipulated? That's right. Sheeta, both parties are in bed with billionaires. Thank you, Maispan. This is slavery at its finest. It's crazy. I'm like, don't we have worker laws in this country? And thank you, Ezekiel. We must boycott Tesla or something. There you go. There you go. All right. We're moving on to the next story. I think I'm doing pretty good with time. Hey, hey, hey. Smash the like, and we're moving on. The theme tonight is The Truth Comes Out, ladies and gentlemen, and we are going to the next story. So the DNC just had elections for the next DNC chair and also the vice chair. Many of you probably are aware that Marianne Williamson was also running as one of the candidates for the DNC chair. We're going to start with her. I'm going to get to who the new DNC chair is and something that he said that is very troubling. In my opinion, I told you guys early on, I did not think that Marianne was going to get, win this position, obviously, right? Like the donors don't want her. It's really all about who the donors wants. It's not about who has a better message for the party when it comes to the political issues. It's about who the donors want. So I said that. I knew that. As you can imagine, Marianne did not receive the votes to become the DNC chair. I want you to hear something that she said before that vote was cast. It says the Democratic Party tells the truth, but we need to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Listen to this here. This is all of the candidates here on the stage. This is the DNC chair forum. Check this out.
Ms. Williamson, same question to you. How do you handle voter prejudices while also addressing their very real substantive policy concerns?
Well, they are not mutually exclusive at all. We tell the truth. You've talked a lot about how do we handle all the lies and the disinformation. We handle all of that by being greater truth tellers. The Democratic Party tells the truth, but we need to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I don't care. You can look all across the board at anybody's race or ethnicity. They are being economically screwed in America today. And that is the truth that everybody needs to hear in terms of the electorate who's not getting what they need from us. And I was a TikTok sensation when my presidential campaign began, and I know why. Because I was telling the truth, that there is a matrix of corporate powers. It has to do with insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, big food companies, big ag, big chemical companies, gun manufacturers, big oil and defense contractors, and they are holding our nation hostage. Their short-term profits have replaced humanitarian and democratic ideals. Their undue influence on our government has turned Washington into a system of legalized bribery. These are what Franklin Roosevelt called the economic royalists. And when people see us standing against them, what they see now is the Democratic Party trying to have it both ways. We want to help people, but we won't go so far where if we cross the line, that's going to offend our donor base.
I want to pause there and sorry the volume's so low. That's max volume on that video. But I actually push back on that part. The part where Marianne says they want to help people. I don't think they really do want to help us. I think most of the politicians that are in Congress, I can't speak for the Republican Party, but for the Democratic Party, I think most of those people have gotten pretty comfortable with where they are. And they've already been told since the first year that they joined Congress that they need to not rock any boats with Dem leadership. And I think many of them have chose to accept that. And that's why they're still there. So you see Cori Bush is not there. You see Jamal Bowman's not there. You see the people who have been pushed out, right? So I think that I push back on that. I don't even think that they really do want to help. And I used to believe that. I'm like, yeah, the Democratic Party, they really do want to help us, but there's just so many obstacles in their way. And the more I educated myself and I learned more about the money and how money works in politics, I started to realize, no, it's not really about that. You may have a couple of politicians who really do care, but that empathy that they have for you can only go so far if they want to continue to keep their position. This is why Bernie Sanders, who's a registered independent, who still runs through the Democratic Party and caucuses with the Democratic Party, this is why he was able to speak to the needs of working class Americans when it comes to healthcare, college, living wage, etc. But even he wasn't willing to push too hard to rock the boat to tell you Bernie or bust, or to tell you that's it. They stole it from me. They made Hillary the nominee. I'm going to start third party. Think about where we could be now if that would have happened. So I don't believe, and I had to learn this over the years, I really don't believe they do want to help. I think most of those people are career politicians and they're doing what they need to do to make sure that they can still afford the luxury lifestyle that they now have. And they've given up on trying to actually help the people. I really do believe that.
Democratic Party has to do is do the right thing. Stand for your values. Stand for the working people of the United States. Unequivocal advocacy. Show them, as Fez was saying, people are not dumb. People are smart. And when they see that, they will vote for us. They'll come home if we do the right thing.
So that was one of the answers that Marianne Williamson gave there at the DNC chair forum. Again, of course, she did not win that. And it was Ken Martin who actually won. Man, this guy is when I saw this guy, his name is Ken Martin. I was not familiar with him before, but if you want to talk about honey, you want to sit back and watch paint dry, because that's the kind of energy that Ken has. Ken is boring. And he also says something pretty cringe. But Ken Martin is now your new DNC chair. I want you to hear some of the things that he had to say.
My friend, our next DNC party chair, Ken Martin.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, look, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I've just got a few minutes left and I got a long speech. So thank you to Peggy, my great friend. Thank you to Supervisor Solis, and of course to my wonderful friend from Labor, Sandra Lee Williams, for her support. I want to take a moment to thank my friend, my brother, our fantastic chairman, Jamie Harrison, for his wonderful work. Look, to my fellow Democrats, we got punched in the mouth in November. There's no two ways about it. I'm running for DNC chair because it's time to get off the mat, to dust ourselves off and to get back in this fight. A lot of people in this country right now are going to need us to walk and chew gum at the same time, meaning we're going to have to fight the extremes of Donald Trump while we make a sharp case to families in both red states and blue states about why they should trust us with their votes. The thing is this: when the Trump agenda fails Americans, which it most certainly will and already has, we have to be there with a legitimate alternative to this chaos. You know, while Donald Trump was being sworn in, Sandra and I marched with labor leaders outside of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the home of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's nice. It's nice that you march with labor leaders outside of Ebenezer Baptist Church. That's great. But I got to take another step here. It really doesn't matter to me if you marching with labor leaders, and when it come time to vote, and when it come time for a call to give people a living wage, you voting against it or you're nowhere to be found. Because what good is the point of marching with the labor people and the labor leaders? Notice they said the leaders, not the actual work. Marching with the labor leaders if you're not out there to call for increase in the minimum wage, if you're not out there to call for a living wage, which is what we should all have, especially in a country as wealthy as the United States. So I don't need your virtue signal. Like, I don't need I was outside the church of Dr. Martin Luther King. No one gives a fuck. A lot of people have walked past that church, walked inside that church, toward that church, and turned around, and were not there for the Black community at all. And when you talk about the working class, you got to remember the majority of Black Americans are working class. So if you are not there when it comes time to call for a living wage, to increase that minimum wage, none of that performative bullshit that you did means anything to me. This is why the Democratic Party continues to struggle. This is why the Democratic Party has had difficulty since Barack Obama. Because he said a lot of good things when he was running. This, and we got to do that, and we got to do that. And the moment he was in, he disappointed Black people the most of my generation. I didn't expect much from Biden. I knew that he was a segregationist who was friends with racists, and everybody wanted you to pretend this shit didn't happen. That's what I knew. But we expected more from Obama. So just continue to go downhill. So here we go. Well, we walk with this and we got to do that and and ain't none of that going to change because Ken still supports billionaire money, which you'll see in a second. Let's continue.
As we march, in the streets of Atlanta, we sang the song, the old Union song, "Which Side Are You On?" For a pro-labor progressive like me, who is a guy who has carried a union card and organized for the labor movement throughout his life, that cut straight to my core. For the past few nights and for these brief moments of stillness that we get these days, I keep thinking about that song. As we move through the next year, Democrats need to ask ourselves each day, whose side are we on? Which side are we on? Are we on the side of the robber baron, the ultra-wealthy billionaire, the oil and gas polluter, the union buster, or are we on the side of the American working family, the small business owner, the farmer, the immigrant, and the students?
You are and have and continue to be on the side of the oligarchs. That's the side. Now, once upon a time, the Democratic Party wasn't that way, but not as long as I can remember since I've been alive. I've read about this, but I've never experienced that. You guys completely changed when you got in bed with the billionaire class, with Wall Street, with the military industrial complex. And I don't have to tell you, Ken tells you all on his own. Ken lets it slip out all on his own. Shout out to Matt Stoller for sharing this clip here. Listen to what Ken Stoller says about billionaires. Check this out.
Bad billionaires.
Here, thank you, Joe Martin.
There are a lot of good billionaires out there that have been with Democrats who share our values, and we will take their money, but we're not taking money from those bad billionaires.
Here.
Did everybody see what he just said? There's a lot of good billionaires out there, and we'll take their money. This just goes to show you, new boss, same as the old boss, honey buns. He's still going to take the billionaire money. They still want the money. Again, this DNC, candidate forum isn't so much about who would be best to move the party forward. It's more about who can we get into this position that's still going to be okay with taking billionaire money and appeals to the donor class. That's what it's about. They weren't going to vote for Marianne because you don't really appeal to the donor class because you've been calling out billionaire money too much. So they definitely weren't going to vote for her. So they picked this schmuck who says, oh, there's some good billionaires out there and we'll continue to take their money. No. Now, you just told us that you were out there in the streets with labor leaders. Now, how are you in the streets with the labor leaders and you say there's good billionaires when billionaires exploit labor? That's why you don't see me up on that stage. That's why you don't see them having this conversation with me. Those two things don't go together. If you're out there telling people that there are good billionaires, he is trying to convince the people that billionaires as a whole are not bad. And you should support the Democratic Party still continue to take billionaire money. But he also out there trying to tell you he walking out in the streets with the labor leaders. So no, that's the disconnect, folks. Because if you're willing to take the money from the billionaire class, those same donors are going to be against you giving people a living wage. Those same donors are going to be against you giving people or increasing the minimum wage. They don't even want you to do that. So don't tell me that there's good billionaires. I don't care who they are. God damn it. Some of you out there really like Taylor Swift and Rihanna and all these people. I give zero fucks. They're billionaires and they exploited people. And it can be done through different ways. So Rihanna starts a business and she says, I'm going to do makeup, yada, yada. Rihanna may not necessarily know at the time, she know now. At the time, she may not have known where that labor was coming from that was producing that product and what they were paying those people. That came out in the news. So these musicians that are billionaires, for example, don't forget they have other businesses on the side. So here he is to convince people, and look at the smile on his face. You got to be kidding me with this guy. So here he is to convince people that it's okay if they're a good billionaire. No, good billionaire and labor do not go hand in hand. You cannot say you are for the labor movement and you're okay with billionaires buying elections, because that's what they're doing. They're not just donating here and there. They're buying elections. But he won. Corny ass mofo. And then to make, this is an interesting part. The vice DNC chair is David Hogg. Does everybody remember David? He was one of the surviving shooters from Parkland. Remember Parkland High School? There's David right there. So he is now the vice chair. And it says he was among 3 people elected to the position Saturday during a meeting at National Harbor, Maryland. He said, I'm deeply grateful to the members for their trust and belief in me, and I don't take it lightly. So remember, he helped organize March for Our Lives. Now, some people are saying, oh, wow, a younger person, this would be great. No, he already controlled. It's already control. I'm trying to tell you guys the people who get in those positions. Hogg has nudged Democrats to become less judgmental and more forceful in their messaging as the party dithers over what direction to take under the second Trump administration. He said, it's time we stop surrendering, go on offense, and take the fight to Donald Trump. We need to show the public who we are again to rid our party of its judgmental attitudes and do the work to win back every group we lost this year. So I'm going to go ahead and call it now. Right? So he's here to help energize the youth. Because remember, they lost the youth vote again this year. That's what he's there for. So notice what the organization is around. Organizing to beat Donald Trump. I don't hear them talking about organizing to do anything for you. This is why I said, I don't believe they really do want to help you. It's just all about how do we prevent another Trump-like figure from winning again in the future? Not what they're going to do for you. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, he told his base exactly what he was going to do for them. And that mofo didn't wait 2 weeks. The moment he got in, he started signing executive orders. So this is the difference. So if the Democratic Party is trying to go on offense, one would do that by doing something for the base, which they're not doing. So Marianne obviously did not get that nomination, and I want to show you what she had to say here. Listen to this.
In 1776, some very brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. I say that they were brave because if the British had won the war, all of them would have been hanged as traitors. With that signing, they infused into the founding of a nation principles that had never been there before, principles of possibility, the very idea that anyone, no matter who they were, had the God-given right to thrive. The idea that God gave inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to every human being, and that governments were instituted to secure those rights. That signing opened up a window of possibility after which the world would never be the same. But that's also where things got gnarly, because 41 of those signers were slave owners. That dichotomy was thus baked into the cake. That's the DNA of the American story, the big both and. With that signing, what we see is that from the very beginning, we have always, throughout our history and reiterated in every generation, including ours, been a reflection of the best that humanity is capable of and the worst that humanity is capable of. That struggle has been reiterated every generation. And yet, over time, the generations whose hearts were ablaze with possibility for justice and righteousness and goodness prevailed. The abolitionists prevailed. The women's suffragists prevailed. The early labor organizers prevailed. The desegregationists, the civil rights movement prevailed. It's our turn now. It's our turn now because in our generation, those who for their own ideological and financial purposes have no intention of seeing these great ideals of American possibility actually made manifest is not one particular institution. It's rather an economic paradigm. It's an economic paradigm that places short-term corporate profits before humanitarian and democratic ideals. And out of this paradigm, there has emerged a soulless, ethically bankrupt, perverse strain of capitalism that has become the governing principle of the United States of America.
Okay, we'll stop there. We're not going to play the whole thing, but Marianne obviously talks about like the capitalist issue, which is actually pretty surprising considering that after Ken Martin was selected, the guy who said, we're going to support those good billionaires. I'll take the money from the good billionaires. She goes on to say this. As I completed my speech at the DNC this morning, I thank those who supported my run. At this moment, what's important is for everyone to contribute in whatever we can to the challenge at hand. Given political realities, the best way I could do that was to end my campaign and heartily endorse the person I feel has the best chance of ending the billionaire-funded corruption at the DNC, Ken Martin. Now, didn't you see me play the clip of Ken saying he does want to take money from the good billionaires? So why would Marianne go on to say he is the best chance of ending the billionaire-funded corruption? He's not. Now, people were pushing her to leave this this party, and one of them is Complex. I'll bring him up here. Complex said, I wish you would just walk away and become independent. We would embrace you with open arms. The DNC has lost the narrative, and I fear there is no coming back. She responded to that and she said, my loyalty is not to a political party, but to my country. I appreciate what you're saying, but given what's happening, we don't have time for the Democratic Party to fail. If there's any possibility of transforming it, then I want to help. So here we go back to this again, right? So Ken becomes the new DNC chair. He tells you he'll still happily take money from good billionaires. So how are you going to transform a political party that is still taking billionaire money? You can't. So in that case, when Marianne says that she wants to try to transform it, she says doesn't have the loyalty to a political party. She does have loyalty to a political party. Her loyalty is to the Democratic Party. This is why the left doesn't win. This is why, like I said, the theme is the truth is all coming out. This is why the left doesn't win. This is why, like, the coalition that we had around Bernie Sanders didn't go further than it did. Now, it was a big movement, but it didn't go further because of the people who are in those positions at that time tell you we have to push back against billionaires and, of course, capitalism, the establishment. But in the end, they concede to such billionaire capitalism and establishment. The movement doesn't have a chance to grow and thrive. And then you have to start asking the question, are those people there to do the right thing, or are those people there to maintain the status quo in the end? I want you to hear what Shama Sawant had to say about all of this. Again, former Seattle City Councilor Shama Sawant came from the grassroots, ground up. Listen to what she says.
The Democratic Party has never been on our side. There will be no reforming it or changing it from within. It is a weapon of the billionaire class, like the Republican Party, and it needs to be destroyed, not collaborated with. The progressive Democrats and others are doing their level best to misdirect their anger and divide working people, particularly by trying to blame working class people for Trump's election. Meanwhile, Trump and the MAGA leadership want to redirect anger away from the billionaires and towards immigrants, trans people, and other oppressed groups. We need to reject all this. Unite working people, students, the poor, and the oppressed against these false scapegoating attacks and focus our fire on the billionaires and their system. This system, capitalism, does not work for us and will never work for us. Working people have enormous potential power. We build everything, we make everything run, and we outnumber the billionaires 1,000,000 times over. The billionaires are only able to get their way because they have succeeded in dividing us. They distract from by far the most important division in society, the capitalists who are wealthy beyond all reason versus the immense majority in society who struggle to survive. We must expose this reality to unify the working class in the fight against the rich and to defend workers and oppressed communities against the mounting attacks from Trump, including the attacks on immigrants and trans people.
And that is the conference she has coming up in Seattle on February 22nd. And that is with Chris Hedges and Jill Stein, Fight the Rich, and their two parties. Shama and Jill were on the show recently to discuss that. And I think she has a really good point here. At the end of the day, the billionaires are sitting back and they're pointing fingers and they're laughing at all of us as we are, splitting among each other. Because as long as they do continue to have us divided between Team Blue and Team Red, then we're really not paying attention to what they're doing. Now, Ari, these are things that we really gotta pay attention to, folks. Gotta pay attention to it. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. The Adventures of Kid Mister says they're doing all this performative shit like they hadn't already picked someone for the position. There you go. Thank you, Zone. What are you complaining about? Get to work. Mentally complicitness in the face of unethical pursuits by elitists like Musk is intention. They believe the people are reactive. Let's be proactive. Joey Peltier, what's up? Who's been a member for 19 months. Ken Martin oversaw the DFL rural districts turn red while pushing big money donor wants, working hard to squash any leftist organizing in the state. See this? See, guys, what I tell you? New boss, same as the old boss. Thank you, Tim. Yep, Sabs, the Dems aren't trying to do shit for us, period. They're preserving the status quo and provide for their donors and corporations. Tear down the duopoly. Thank you, H. Dennis. Sabby, are we still pushing Trump for a ceasefire in the Congo, reparations, and a fair wage? Also, any word on Trump's EO and pause BHM celebrations? So I've covered those stories already, if I'm not mistaken. Are we still pushing Trump for a ceasefire in the Congo? I don't know. I don't know if people have talked to him about that or not. Reparations, I think Marcel Dixon might have been in contact with his administration. If you're on Twitter, try to if you're on Twitter, follow Marcel. I think Marcel Dixon posted on Twitter that he was in talks maybe with some people that were part of his administration about reparations. So, yeah. Thank you, my spun. Ken sounds like I was smoking weed in my dorm room while listening to Tupac. Thank you, Ezekiel. I usually don't tolerate swearing, but for you, I'll allow it. Nikki says, how does David Hogg reconcile his anti-gun violence in schools with support for a political party which supported genocide and gun violence against Palestinians in Gaza? Did he say anything about Gaza? That's a good question. Again, I'm telling you guys, so these people are chosen. Louise says, don't believe your lying ears. Marianne Shillingson. And thank you for the super sticker VS Need doing the damn thing. Let's get the comment on Rumble. Thank you, RB Ham. Adam Lanza / David Hogg proves that crisis acting pays well. Interesting. All right, we're going to a crazy story, okay? So buckle up. Again, the theme is the truth comes out. There is this dude who was on TikTok. I think they ran him off of TikTok. This was sent my way. And he had some things to say about Black people. A Mexican guy who's a DJ. And I just want you to hear what he says. And we'll chime in here. Okay? Again, I believe, from what I understand, I think they ran this guy off of TikTok after this. Listen to this.
Lately, I have seen a lot of videos of Black people making fun of Mexicans for what's happening right now with Mexican people. I have also seen Black people make videos talking about Mexicans. Don't come to us for help because we're not helping. First of all, Mexicans are not alone. They have Honduran people. They have Salvadorian people. They have Guatemalan people, they have Nicaraguan people, and a whole bunch of other countries that are willing to join forces with the Mexican people. Black people, what makes you think that Mexicans are going to come running to y'all for help? What for? Y'all Black people can't even help yourselves. That's wild. Mexican people are hardworking people. Mexican people stick together. They make it work. That's the total opposite of a Black person. You want to call me a racist? Go right ahead. I'm just keeping it real. Like I said, Mexican people are not alone. They have all of us. What makes you think that a Mexican will say, oh, okay, well, we have the Blacks. Let's go to them. Come on now. Y'all don't even trust each other. What makes you think that a Mexican will trust you if you don't even trust your brother? Get your popcorn ready and watch how Mexicans make this work.
So some people were saying they think he is actually Cuban, but I'm playing this because I want to prove a point, right? First of all, some of the things that he said isn't true. Let's go through this one by one.
Lately, I have seen a lot of videos of Black people making fun of Mexicans for what's happening right now with Mexican people. I have also seen Black people make videos talking about Mexicans. Don't come to us for help because we're not helping.
Pause. Okay, the videos that I think he's referring to, I did not see people say, don't come to us Mexicans. I think they were talking about people who may be deported in general, but I didn't see videos where people said, don't come to us if you're Mexican or something like that. I didn't see that. That being said, this is a chronic example about what happens when people focus on what people are saying online on videos and what's actually happening in real life. Nobody I know in real life is going around saying, oh, don't come to me. Don't come to me. Don't come to me. You're talking about other videos that are on TikTok or whatever, that type of thing. And I think he's making this big generalization thinking all Black people are doing this. And that's not the case. Most of us, I would say, probably haven't said anything about it. So if he believes that's the case, but think about this for a second. The majority of Black voters voted for who? Okay, right. This reminds me that time when Barack Obama again was pointing fingers at black men and he's saying, I blame you because her numbers aren't where they should be. When if you looked at the data, it showed that black people overwhelmingly were supporting the Democratic Party. And it was actually white people that were not supporting overwhelmingly. So it's interesting that he's calling out black people, for the few that have made videos about the deportations, etc., when the majority of African Americans voted for Kamala Harris. The majority of African Americans did not vote for Donald Trump. He increased his support, but the majority didn't vote for him. It was actually Latino voters who went over heavily more in favor of Donald Trump. So he's talking about us when most of us didn't vote for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the one who's made the executive order. So what are you talking about? Let's continue.
First of all, Mexicans are not alone. They have Honduran people. They have Salvadorian people. They have Guatemalan people. They have Nicaraguan people and a whole bunch of other countries that are willing to join forces with the Mexican people.
That's not what I've seen. So here's the thing. I think what he's trying to say here is that there's more unity in the Latino community that he's saying. I guess he's saying that like Mexican Americans are seeing. That hasn't been what I've seen. Because here's the thing. There's division in different groups. There's division. He's saying is just black people. We don't trust ourselves. We're divided or whatever. I've seen white people get divided too. You know what they divide over? Class. Poor white people, wealthy white people. I had a friend of mine who used to live here in the Boston area. She was living in East Boston, Latino American, neighborhood for the most part, but more so South American. She's Puerto Rican. And she explained to me that she kind of wasn't really accepted there. She said, people think that because we all speak Spanish, that we all like this. And she said, no, they didn't really accept me there. They look at me kind of funny because I'm Puerto Rican and I'm legal. And they're trying to get to the same status that I am. So she says, so they don't look at me with trust in that way. So I don't know what he's talking about. I've seen division across the board, regardless of the race. I've seen people be divided in different ways. Let's continue.
Black people, what makes you think that Mexicans are going to come running to y'all for help? What for? Y'all black people can't even help yourselves.
So do you see how he talks about us? Y'all black people can't even help yourselves. So as I said, this TikTok DJ Play Live is his name. From what I understand, they ran him off of TikTok because, people were very upset about this video. But the reality is, folks, when you listen to what he's saying, even if the deportations didn't happen, even if those videos were never made, this is what he always thought about us. He's letting you know this is what he always thought about black people, regardless, deportations or not. This is how he always felt. Now, does this mean that everybody in the Latino community feels the same way that he does? No, absolutely not. But he's not a good representation. It's like, he's not a good representation. Let's continue on.
That's wild. Mexican people are hardworking people. Mexican people stick together.
So he said that Mexican people are hardworking people. That's his way of telling you that black people are not. That's really what he's saying to you. He's really telling you that he doesn't see black people as hardworking people. So here we go with that hardworking stuff, right? What defines hardworking? I know black people that have 2 and 3 jobs. But because I guess he sees it as though if you're not out there doing the jobs that Mexican Americans are doing, then you're not hardworking. But notice you don't hear him say that white people aren't hardworking. They're not doing those jobs. The attack is specifically on the black community. This is what happens. I've seen this before where people will move to the United States and they're coming from a country where they were the majority, or their parents come from a country where they were the majority, or everybody, it's more homogenous, right? And then you come to the US, which is more of a melting pot. When you compare it to other countries, it really is. So now, in a way to not feel like you're a part of the bottom tier, you look for another group to look down upon. And oftentimes is us. Oftentimes people will come to the US, and when they say, who am I going to look down on? It's Black people. Because if you're coming here and you're trying to align yourself with accomplishing the American dream, well, that means you're going to align yourself as close to whiteness as possible. And if you align yourself as close to whiteness as possible, that means, like many white people, you're also going to look down on Black people. Now, again, he's a DJ.
They make it work. That's the total opposite of a Black person. You want to call me a racist? Go right ahead. I'm just keeping it real.
He said they stick together and they make it work. It's a lot easier to stick together and to make it work when you don't have certain systems in place that have been working against you since the dawn of time. So if you come here, you and your family come here, and you don't have to deal with, your people never had to go through Jim Crow. They never had to deal with the education system, the funding going out of the schools. They didn't deal with white flight. They didn't go through the Great Migration. They came here after all the work was already done through the civil rights movement. So you're pointing your fingers and you're saying that Black people basically are lazy, is what he's trying to tell you, that we're not hardworking. But you wouldn't even be able to come here if it wasn't for the work that was done by Black people through the civil rights movement. You're more accepted. And when you take a whole family, if me and my whole family tomorrow said, okay, we're moving to Montreal or whatever, right? Of course, we're going to be all together and close together as a unit. We're all in a new place for the first time at the same time. We're all going to work together and lift each other up. But you cannot sit here and pretend like Black people didn't have hurdle after hurdle after hurdle after hurdle to go through in this country, and then expect us to just feel like nothing happened. And then you come here and you say, you guys aren't hardworking. Let me continue.
Like I said, Mexican people are not alone. They have all of us. What makes you think that a Mexican will say, oh, okay, well, we have the Blacks, let's go to them? Come on now. Y'all don't even trust each other. What makes you think that a Mexican will trust you?
I know people of all different races that don't trust each other. I know other people who don't trust each other as well. What do you mean? Like, y'all don't even trust each other? Yeah, some of your people don't trust each other either, bud. Why are you making this just about, seriously? Seriously? So what you're seeing here again, once again, what did I tell you about adjacent? Because when he wants to, and if he wants to, he can align himself with white people, and he can talk down to Black people too. Vivek Ramaswamy tried to do that, and I think he learned the hard way because he realized he couldn't say those same things to white people, and that's why he's no longer in Doge.
If you don't even trust your brother, get your popcorn ready and watch how Mexicans make this work.
Okay, so let's see the counter to that, because this gentleman here is going to make it very clear. He's Latino. He's going to make it very clear that he does not see himself in that same category as that gentleman was just describing. Listen to this.
This message goes to all you Latinos who were not born in the United States of America. Talking shit to other Latinos who were born in the United States of America. You guys are talking shit to us because we stand with the mass deportations of these illegal immigrant criminals who are not only criminals in America, but also their own country. You can get upset with us all you fucking want. At the end of the day, none of you have to be there, nor do those individuals.
Pause. This gentleman here, who's also Latino American, do you see what he's doing? He's making it very clear that he does not put himself in that same category. Now, the gentleman that you saw that just got ran off of TikTok, DJ Play Live, that gentleman, he told you in the video that they're not alone and they got everybody else too. But this guy right here is letting you know, no, I don't appreciate what's happening. So why didn't the TikTok racist rant dude, why didn't he make the same video about Latino Americans making videos like this? Why was the finger pointing at black people? He doesn't want you to see this. This guy here is delineating. And you'll hear him say that as we go further in the video. He's letting you know that just because he's Latino and the other gentleman before him is Latino, he's letting you know, no, we're not the same. But the guy in the previous video would have you believing this is different. According to him, only black people don't trust each other. Black people are the ones who are not together. I told you this happens in every race in this country. And a lot of times class is a factor that divides people, regardless of your race. Let him finish.
I don't know who you guys think you are, but the fucking audacity to come to someone's country and demand that certain things not be done because you say so. This is exactly why I consider myself and will always call myself American. No soy Mexicano. I'm not Mexican. I'm Latino, but I'm an American Latino. And I find it a little bit funny that ironically you guys don't mention the fucking beef between each fucking nation and the way certain people think of each other from other countries.
Oh boy, what did he just say? What did he just tell you? So do you see he made a distinction there? I've been telling people this over and over again. And I learned this years ago and I was kind of surprised. This is back when I was in high school. When I was in high school, one of my classmates told me she actually is not in favor of illegal immigration. And I was young then. I just assumed that she would be okay with that because she was Latina. And she made it very clear to me. She said, no, Sabrina. She said, my parents had to wait in line to get through. And as time went by, I started to see more and more Latino Americans were not in favor of this. But the gentleman from the TikTok video doesn't tell you this. If you listen to him, he would have you thinking that they all together as one group. No, as I said before, class divides people even in the same race. So people who are coming here, the people, the migrant community that's coming here, they are lower class. They don't have anything. They're coming here to try to start something. They don't have anything. But for those who are already here, like this gentleman said, he's an American. Did you see that? There's a different class between the two. And I continue to say this, regardless if you're the same race, class divides the group. Continue.
I like how you guys leave out that there's even Mexicans right now in Tijuana protesting against illegal immigration, saying we don't want them here either, America. You also got Mexicans not like Venezuelans. El Salvadorians do not like Hondurans. Cubans and Puerto Ricans. Call one of them the opposite and you'll see how quickly they'd get upset. Even though we may share the same color of skin, That don't make us all kin. We are all different and unique in our own way. But for some of you guys upset that American Latinos are supporting this mass deportation of these individuals, just remember, you don't have to be here. You can always go back to your country and try to turn it into the America you want it to be. Straight up, y'all can get the fuck out of here.
Okay. So you heard what he just said, right? As I've said before, and some people get mad when you talk about this, you reveal the truth. But the reality is this happens in every race. There is going to be class that is going to divide it. So for him to point fingers and say, oh, it was just the black people, you can't even da-da-da-da. No. Everybody may be all together if they're the same race until class is a factor. I had a friend when I was in high school. She lived in a trailer park. And she used to get picked on so bad at school. People used to call her white trash because she lived in a trailer park. See, because my family was military, we went to school like there were diverse incomes. All right. So some kids had money. Some kids did not. And some were in between. So the rich white kids at my school, it's like they were all united until class was a factor. And once class was a factor, they're like, no, we can't mess with you. We can't talk to you. You can't come to our birthday party because my mom says that because you're where you live in a trailer park. Yeah, I know someone just said kids are cruel. Yeah, kids are cruel. But class does divide. But the thing is this, and I've said before, I've been trying to tell you guys, people continue to tell me, they said, well, there's a black and brown coalition. No, there isn't. I've never seen this. I don't know why people continue to say it. I never saw it in high school. I didn't see it in college. I don't see it today. I don't see that. Now, is that something that could change? As long as you live in a place where there is a melting pot like the United States, as long as you live in a place where there is a melting pot like the US, the problem that you're going to continue to run into is that a group does not want to be on the bottom. And one of the ways that groups make sure that they're not on the bottom is by pointing fingers at someone else. So as long as they can point down to someone else, they'll point down to someone else. But he came off real disrespectful, boo. Real disrespectful. And he's a DJ. DJ. They found it. I told you they found everything. They found his website, djplaytv.com. You see what I mean? They found everything. So when you DJing, do you feel this way? If any of your customers, any of your black customers, you feel this way? Do any of your black customers know you feel like this? Please. We're going to move on. Eric, can you find the timestamp for that next video? Yeah, thank you. We're going to move on. But I'm not going to let people sit up there and talk about my people like that, man. I get tired of people saying that kind of mess. We're hardworking. Please. Let's go to the comments here. Thank you, Mad Wolf. Dude did apologize after being called out by several people, said he was sorry for making that post in anger. That's nice. But that's how he felt. Don't try to cover up him now. What he said there is exactly what he thought about black people. Thank you, Zone. So he's pointing out there's more groupthink among Mexicans, I guess, generalizing is Americans' biggest issue, especially among MAGA. Thank you, Goba. This looks like a psyop to divide UD immigrants with other minorities. Don't fall for it. Let's unite and fight the billionaire class. Thank you, Ezekiel. So we lay the foundation for y'all, but we lazy, ? Thank you, Zode. Targeted discrimination. I really need people to look up and understand the word racism. Just because it doesn't include a prejudice doesn't mean it doesn't fit. Notice the word or in the definition. Thank you. Where's the love? Over half of white women and Hispanics voted against their own interests. We get blamed for everything, including airplane crashes. I know. Thank you, Cowpoke. It's all projection. They know Black Americans built the country, literally. So it's a constant PR campaign to make themselves the hero of the story. Mario says his racism came out and he is scared of pushback from other communities. Be easy. White people are deporting his people, but he blames Black people. Typical. The blame always swing back this way. Thank you, baby Ethernet. Wow. But Afro Latino are Black. That DJ is cringe. Shout out to Mary Williams for becoming a Sabby member. Give Mary a big whoop whoop. Thank you. None of your business. There is only one race of many colors class issue. Thank you, baby Ethernet. Afro Latinos are Blacker than Kamala Harris. And thank you, Mad Wolf. Not covering for him. He was wrong for that. Thank you so much. All right, let's get the comment on Rockfin and we'll go to the next story. We got one more story left. Yes. Thank you, Roger. No racial group is a monolith. That's why I say to my brethren in Black freedmen community, beware of those from our community who use the commonality of race to separate you from your labor rights. These will often be the Black businessmen who will bring you up on the game about how the white guy is exploiting you to get you to come over to him just so he can exploit you just like the white guy. Freedmen form worker co-op. Yeah, I'm telling you, when you get to that's the part a lot of people don't like to talk about that. A lot of people don't want to admit it. But the reality is, regardless of the race, class is the one thing that divides you regardless. Dolan said FBAs ain't hearing that shit. They always want to blame us, man. Always want to blame us. Okay. Last story. If you haven't had a chance to do so, smash the like. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. And we're going to this final story. Okay. So the truth is coming out. Now, I want to take you back to the moment where Kamala Harris's former campaign staffers, they had that interview with Pod Save America, and they did explain why Kamala did not have the interview at Joe Rogan. Let's look at that first, because now there is another story that is being released that apparently is a lot different than what they said on Pod Save America. Were they trying to run cover? Let's see. Let's get into this clip here. Just a reminder what happened with the Rogan situation.
One of the, I believe to be the more tedious post-election debates is about should Kamala Harris have gone on Rogan? Can you just, not to be tedious about it, could you talk a little bit about how close she came to doing it, why it didn't happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue around this, a lot of theories. It's pretty simple. We wanted to do it. I hate to repeat this over and over, but it was a very short race with a limited number of days. And for a candidate to leave the battleground to go to Houston, which is a day off the playing field in the battleground, getting that timing right is really important. So we had discussions with Joe Rogan's team. They were great. They wanted us to come on. We wanted to come on. We tried to get a date to make it work. And ultimately, we just weren't able to find a date. We did go to Houston. And she gave a great speech at an amazing event.
The Beyonce event?
Yes, well, I'm going to call it reproductive freedom. And because Texas is ground zero for the impact of these Trump abortion bans. There's a story out today, in fact, of another young woman who lost her life because of it. And we were hoping to be able to fit it in around that. And ultimately weren't able to do it. As it turns out, that was the day that Trump was taping his Joe Rogan. Which they had never.
Okay. Hold on to what she said, okay? Don't forget about that.
Never confirmed to us. We kind of figured that out in the lead up to it. She was ready, willing to go on Joe Rogan. Would it have changed anything? It would have been it would have broken through, not because of the conversation with Joe Rogan, but because the fact that she was doing it. And that was really the benefit of it. Will she do it sometime in the future? Maybe. Who knows? But it, didn't ultimately impact the outcome one way or the other. But she was willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, Dan.
Okay. Because the story that is being released now is a little bit different, right? Okay. And it almost felt like they were trying to protect not just Kamala, but when you hear this other part of the story, it also kind of seemed like they were trying to protect Joe Rogan a little bit too. And I want to show you why. Now it is being reported that that story has changed. So let's go on here. Make this smaller. I think there's a... Okay, there we go. Okay. So that was the story that was given by her former campaign staff, right? But a new story has been published. You guys got to see this. That says something a little bit different. And I want you to tell me who you think is to blame. It says how Harris failed to land Rogan. So let's go down here and we'll make sure that that video doesn't get in the way, because sometimes that does. Okay. And we'll make it a little bit bigger. All right. So the obvious answer, Joe Rogan, a late 1990s sitcom star turned bro with a brain podcaster. So Rogan boasted a subscriber base that amounted to a total eclipse of the genre's universe, with nearly 15 million signed up just on Spotify alone. So they're talking about here how this could have been the way to really give Kamala's campaign, or at least Kamala Harris, more attention in a space where maybe she has not ventured to before, right? With a different audience. It goes on to say here, the vast majority of Rogan's guests and listeners were white men, presenting Harris with a potential opportunity to prove her mettle by walking into the lion's den. So let's walk through the timeline, because the video I just played for you doesn't go through all of this. On October 11th, Harris deputy campaign manager Rob Flaherty, the aide in charge of digital strategy, made the first Zoom call to start negotiating with Rogan's representatives. So let's highlight this here. I'll still make it bigger too, because I know how the text can be, guys. He did not know what to expect. This might be juiced up, UFC looking supplement people, he thought. He was surprised, perhaps a tad disappointed, to find out that Rogan's associates were more like Hollywood agents. In that vein, they outlined the podcaster's conditions for an interview. No staff in the studio, no topic restrictions, and Harris would have to sign a waiver. So now we're getting a little bit more information about this. And I could see how this could make someone a little bit hesitant if there are certain things that they didn't feel comfortable talking about. I'm not sure if this was the same conditions that were given to Donald Trump for Joe Rogan's interview. I don't know. But you can see where there could have been some issues here, in particularly no topic restrictions, right? So a lot of times with political candidates, there is like a topic restriction, or there are certain things that they'll say you're not allowed to ask these questions, or we need all the questions prior to the interview. That's not uncommon. And it said here that the waiver has to be signed, right? So people have to remember, those of us older millennials out here, we remember Joe Rogan when he was on Fear Factor. Like, I remember he was telling people to eat bugs, right? So before he had the Joe Rogan podcast, before like all the popular UFC, like, you know, commentary and fights from him. So it makes sense to me that his team would be more of like a Hollywood type. Remember, he was a comedian. He's on Fear Factor, all that kind of stuff. So let's continue on. There was more than one item in the small print. Harris would have to come to Austin, Texas. Rogan's rep said that might be negotiable, but he had only once done an interview with an out-of-studio guest, and that was, of course, Edward Snowden. I think a lot of people saw that interview with him, right? Obviously, Edward Snowden couldn't come here. Along with fellow Harris campaign advisors Stephanie Cutter and Brian Fallon, Flaherty offered up that Harris would be happy to talk about social media censorship, weed, and other issues they thought would be of most interest to his listeners. So this is another thing, this part right here. Now it seems like you're trying to discuss issues. You're trying to discuss those issues because that's what you feel his audience cares about. Now it kind of seems like you don't want her to be herself. You know what I mean? Because they wouldn't send that to Al Sharpton, or they wouldn't have sent that to probably Call Her Daddy, like if she sat down with the Call Her Daddy podcast, right? So now it kind of feels like you're trying to make her be something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. So it goes on to say, I'm with you, Casey. It was rough for me too. Casey said Fear Factor used to make me vomit. Fear Factor was rough. I don't know why people eat bugs all the time. God damn it. Anywho, from their perspective, it was a suggestion of possible topics, not an exhaustive or exclusive list. That's not what Rogan wanted to talk about. So listen to this. Joe just wants to talk about the economy, the border, and abortion. One of his reps said, according to a person familiar with negotiations. So that's interesting. Like, he didn't even want to get into those topics. After 2 Zoom sessions, Flaherty called the Rogan intermediaries with an offer. Could Rogan join Harris in Michigan? Okay. Says proposing a date later in the week. No go. The Rogan team said after reaching the host on a week-long hunting trip, Austin or nothing. So can I just say this part? This is where I think probably wasn't the best idea to suggest having him travel out, because I think everybody knows that the guest goes to Austin, Texas. Like, we've watched a number of Joe Rogan interviews where it's not just Joe Rogan sitting there by himself. Like, obviously the guest comes to him. So why would there be an exception? Like, Trump came there. So if Trump came there, why would there be an exception for? So just think about this for a second. That's not the style of the show. Maybe someone else would have been willing to do that, but that's just not the way it works, right? So it goes on to say that's going to be tough. This is coming from Flaherty again. We're only a few weeks out from the election. Harris had less than 0 reason to be in Texas. It was not a swing state. Her campaign was flush with cash, so it made no sense to take her off the trail to raise money. She was in a battleground or bust mode. Plus, a detour to Texas might smell like desperation to the press and a waste of money dollars. Okay, but then they went on to do the Beyonce event in Texas. So I get, you were coming to Texas anyway. Like, that's the thing. That's what was weird to me. It goes on to say here, okay, O'Malley Dillon said the campaign could fly her to Houston for a rally under the cover of visiting a state with one of the most restrictive abortion laws, to put her in proximity to Austin. She dispatched an advance team to the Texas state capitol to do a walkthrough of Rogan's studio and get ready for a Harris arrival. So this is the part I did not know. Let's highlight this right here. She dispatched an advance team to the Texas state capitol to do a walkthrough of Rogan's studio and get ready for a Harris arrival. She authorized her negotiating team to give Rogan what he demanded, an in-person studio interview in Austin on October 25th. So that part was not mentioned in the Pod Save America conversation. And I guess the question I ask is, why didn't they mention all of this? Why did they leave that part out? I mean, it almost feels like, and wait till we get to the other part, because it almost feels like they're not just trying to protect her, they were trying to protect him too. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. He goes on to say, Rogan called Trump a man baby. We know about that part. This part right here. At the same time, Rogan was hardly Mr. Popular, instead inside Harris camp. Her brother-in-law, Tony West, longtime advisor, Minion Moore, and others argued against putting Harris on the podcast, especially after her first venture into politically tough terrain. They're talking about with Fox's Brett Bart. Now, this part right here, there was no telling what Rogan might ask her or how he would treat her. Plus, his anti-work crusade had made him a pariah on the hard left. They were overruled by O'Malley's Dylan's crew, but not because the concerns were considered invalid. Even for those of us who were in favor of it, it was a close call, said one of the Harris advisors involved in the back and forth. Now, here's the part of the back and forth to me that was, I think, pretty important that people should have known about. On October 10th, the day before Flaherty spoke to Rogan, the Harris campaign, their weekly internal analytics assessment of the race, had projected Harris winning exactly 270 electoral votes. She was on track to take the blue wall and Nebraska's 2nd district, but lose the rest of the swing states, at least according to her own analysts. Well, we know how that went, huh? We know how that didn't work out. Then they go on to talk about how, beneath the top line numbers, though, the analytics showed why it was important for Harris to reach the type of voters who listen to Rogan. In battleground states, Trump led Harris by 10.6 percentage points among men and trailed her by 9.3 percentage points among women. So again, it sounds like they still felt like she should go onto the show. Now, this is the part that's wild. For many Democratic operatives outside the campaign, the October 22nd announcement that Harris would hold a Houston rally felt like a palm to face moment. She was going to lose Texas by a lot, and a visit would not force Trump to spend his limited campaign money there. Her aides scheduled the rally for a Friday night in the fall, which was October 25th. So hold on to that date. In Texas, it was as if no one on her team knew that the night reserved for high school football was more sacred than Easter in the state. Campaign advisor David Plouffe responded to the criticism publicly, explaining that Harris wanted to shine a light on a place where she believed Trump anti-abortion policies had done the most damage to women's health. Okay, fast forward back to the Rogan stuff. Now it goes on to say only a few people knew the real reason. The whole Houston rally was built to put her in proximity to Rogan. The ongoing negotiations on that were touch and go. So do you guys see what this says here? The real reason, so it wasn't even, so put this way, they're admitting the real reason wasn't even about reproductive health. The real reason was to put her in close proximity to Joe Rogan so they could still try to work out a date for the podcast. Now here comes the weird part though. So Flaherty had called his Rogan contacts on October 18th before the rally was set. We could do Friday, the 25th. This is coming from Flaherty. Wish we would have known about this sooner because he has the 25th blocked out as a personal day. That's coming from one of Joe Rogan's reps. So October 25th, which they were preparing to do the Houston rally for, they said, while we're there, let's try to do that same date with Joe Rogan so we could just do, the boop, boop, Austin, then the rally, Austin, the rally, right? But Joe Rogan's staff said that he had a personal day on October 25th, so that wasn't going to work. But check this out. What about Saturday morning? Flaherty countered. Only if it's before 8:30 a.m. came the tough reply. The tone is different, Flaherty thought. The vice president of the United States is offering to come to your effing show, and you keep putting up more hoops. Harris's team still wanted to make it work, but a new wariness set in. Nikki said, I can see why Kamala had a high turnover of staff. Yeah. So they were still trying to make it work. It goes on to say on October 22nd, the same day the Harris camp announced the rally, the Associated Press reported that Trump would be Rogan's guest on Friday, the personal day Rogan had originally reserved. Is it sinking with everybody? On October 22nd, the same day that Kamala Harris's camp announced the rally, the Houston rally, the Associated Press reported that Donald Trump would be Rogan's guest on Friday, October 25th, the personal day Rogan had originally reserved. So one or two things happen here, folks. This is an interesting part. One or two things happen here. Either Joe Rogan's representatives were not honest and just said he had a personal day that day to try to brush her off, or they were honest, and they were looking at his calendar and it did say it was a personal day, but he was willing to make an exception for Donald Trump. Because the staff knows if there's a guest, they book the guest. From what I understand, Joe Rogan doesn't book his own guest, right? A lot of people don't. So here's what I think happened, and I'm just shooting in the dark here. It seems like to me, maybe he did have October 25th on his calendar as a personal day. But it almost kind of sounds like maybe he was willing to make an exception for Donald Trump, even though that was a personal day for him. Maybe he made an exception. Like, for example, sometimes I'll tell people like, well, I can't, I don't stream on certain days, right? But if someone wants to come on and I'm not streaming that day, I'll just record it and then upload it. You guys have seen me do this before, right? So it sounds like to me that either they knew that he had Donald Trump booked already, and maybe he put it in the calendar as a personal day because he did not want that to get leaked or whatever. But regardless, the staff books the guest. So they would have known that Donald Trump was coming on anyway. And they probably didn't want to tell that to Kamala because they didn't want that to get out. Either way, it's interesting that all of this is coming out now after they had that interview with Pod Save America, because they didn't even say this in the Pod Save America interview. So why now? Something to think about, folks. Something to think about. But the truth has apparently come out. I don't know. I think Eric, are you going to close it out? I think Eric's going to close it out, you guys, because I do have a hard stop at 7:30. But
I can do that.
like if you haven't had a chance to do so. And thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. I will be back live Tuesday evening. Bye.
Yes. And Tuesday, I'll be on JB's show. I think Corey will be on it too. So catch us Tuesday at 3 p.m. I'll talk more about that in a minute.
See you guys.
You're
Eric
free to go. All right. Let's see. We do have some super chats built up here. Let's see. Yeah, the Oracle saying, but Joe Rogan's audience is millions of people strong and many outside the Democratic base. Yeah, it's one of those things going on Rogan, right? It could have helped a lot. It could have hurt. It could have hurt a lot. And thanks for the super chat, Zone Fanfic, who says, let's talk about FBA's Foundation of Black Americans. As I've heard, they preferred segregation, which was racist, hate MLK, and believe we should go back to segregation for reparations. Correct if wrong. And thanks also for this one, Zone. It says FBA isn't even endorsed or pandered, by the way. And also thanks for this one, Zone, who says, looks like Rogan gave Kamala the runaround. Yeah, I mean, it's quite something how that all played out, how close they came to doing the interview. And it's, you got to wonder, how that would have played out. And just before we close it out, I just wanted to highlight, related to, let me get this on here. Here we go. 11 Demands and the 11 Demands Substack, which I encourage everyone to join. So you can get updates and hear about what's happening with that stuff. This was kind of on this latest one. Let me get in there. Connected to the Shama Sawant video, which Sabby covered earlier, which I encourage everyone to check out. And I'm saying on it, get rid of that. Shama's saying that both the Democrats and the Republicans are not our friends, and they both work for the billionaires. And what I wanted to get into here is strong agree with that. And I'm also saying in this that we need to be specific about exactly what fixes we're proposing and the solutions. And that MCDS describes a framework that centers on, the number one demand. We need to fix the big money and fix the corruption. And they get into, and the demands get into exactly how we do that. And, there's also this idea of the messaging. And sometimes what I think about is when people on the left say, we need to get rid of capitalism or, end capitalism. And I basically agree, but I think we can also frame that in terms of saying we can do better than capitalism. And I'm just looking to make the point in this one that we need to, describe what kind of world we're proposing, what a better world could look like. And so this gets into things like, we don't, a world in which we don't just have Medicare for all, but we have a full United States NHS, a world where we provide not just a minimum wage, but a minimum standard of living. That means, housing, food, education, employment for everyone. A world which we don't have these constant wars, which we've implemented a non-corporate Green New Deal, a world in which we've made good on the debt owed to Adolf Friedman, a world in which we turn the tax system into a tool we use to fix wealth inequality, and a world in which we transform our economy into one that breaks up these huge corporations and supports small businesses, worker co-ops. Basically a world that's run by the 99%, not the billionaires. And I think out on the left, what I call the real left, we need to be pointing out, these things are possible. It starts with a strong set of demands and then getting organized behind them. And to that end, I bring this up also just to say, noting that, yeah, Corey and I are scheduled to be on JB Font's show on Tuesday, this coming up Tuesday at 3 p.m. So I hope we'll all see you on there. We'll be getting the links out to there. But please do subscribe to 11 Demands. I suppose I should put that in the chat, to the 11 Demands Substack, where we get into these things and other things. I'm just finding the link. And that is just about going to close us out. Let me just get in here and copy and paste this to here. You know, I'm not as smooth as Sabby. What can I say? But here we go. Yeah. So there's the link to the 11 Demands. Let me remove that. And we got all the super chats read, and that is going to do us. Sabby will be on again Tuesday. So Tuesday, you've got your things to watch. You can watch us on JB's show at 3. Sabby will be on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And in the meanwhile, I'll try to do my best Sabby impression here and say the old have a good night, keep up the fight. I just have to find the right video to play here. There it is. All right. See ya.